Broncos country, what's going on? How y'all doing tonight? Happy Saturday. Hope you guys got a chance to enjoy the day. I got out a little bit last couple days, got some golfing, played absolutely horrible, like usual. But nonetheless, man, we got out and we enjoyed it. But I appreciate y'all tuning in today, man. And the episode that we're going to be talking on today and what we're going to be focusing on is a positional group for the Denver Broncos that could ultimately not just decide how the 2024 season goes for the Denver Broncos and how successful or not successful we are from the standpoint, but it could really be the most intricate part of setting up Bo Nix for his future success or his future demise, nonetheless. And that's going to be the offensive line. And we'll get right into that. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like and comment on my videos. I always appreciate feedback. I would love to start getting some people in the community on the channel so we can talk and we can debate. We can make this um, a really great place for people, everyday sports fans like us, to just come on and be able to chat it up and get whatever's on our mind off of our chest. So I appreciate that in advance, um, especially if you guys are big Broncos fans, big Nuggets fans, Colorado Avalanche fans, and if you love fantasy football specifically as well. We are going to have it all. I'm going to be putting a lot of time and effort and work into delivering some great content for you all. So super appreciate it. And like I said, your feedback and your comments are always appreciated. I'm on a mission to 500 subscribers. We'll get there. We're going to keep working. We'll keep getting there. So much appreciated in advance. All right, guys. So let's get right into it. Let's break it down. Let's start talking about the offensive line for the Broncos. And this is a unit. This is a positional group that really, of all the groups that we have, of all the positions, this is probably the one that has the most clarity. It's got the most continuity, and it's a group that I'm feeling extremely optimistic about because I really like the overall talent. I think last year this offensive line was severely underrated. I think that they actually performed really well, but it was other aspects of the offense, uh, Russell Wilson and some others that really didn't do the offensive line much favors based off of the way that they played and based off of the way that Sean Payton's offense is going to be run. And really, the only change that we're going to be looking at having this year is center. So let's look at the bookends, right? The left and the right tackle. Left tackle always the most important position when it comes to quarterback play. Garrett Bowles is going to return. He is going to be on the final year of his deal. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I personally think that we should look at extending him or you know, bringing him back for potentially a year after this year. But I just don't foresee it happening. I think it's one of those situations where the Broncos are going to see them kind of see how it plays out and continue to try to develop guys that are coming up for a lot of different reasons. Because there is still some unknown with Garrett Bowles. He's one of those tackles that he's just solid. He's not top tier elite, but he's by no means terrible. He's an above average offensive tackle. But you got to love what he brings to the room. His teammates really seem to love him. He went through a lot, obviously, as we all know here in Broncos country with his career early on. And I always give him kudos, and I'm always admired by the way that he bounced back from all that. And so looking forward to have him kind of hold down the left tackle for it. But I think behind him and some of the developmental players, the swing tackle is going to be a really intriguing storyline to follow. As you look at the right tackle, obviously Mike McGlinchey is coming back. Mike McGlinchey is one of those guys that I think gets a lot of hate in Broncos country because he definitely, when he has bad plays, they're really bad. Um, but I'm optimistic about Mike McGlinchey because first of all, the leadership that he brings to the team. He's an extremely well-spoken guy. He's very well respected. He's an absolute tank when it comes to run blocking and running the ball, which is going to absolutely be a bigger a focal point of the offense this year. And it's going to be huge to the success of Bo Nix and this entire offense, frankly. And I think that there's still room to grow with him, even though he's played a lot of football. He's a veteran. He's our highest paid guy in this group. I think that there's still a lot of growth, and I think that as coming back in year two with these guys and building that continuity and having some good coaching, I think he's going. I think he's going to be just fine. Yeah, I think he's gonna be just fine at the right tackle position. So excited to see him. When you look at right guard, man, you know, that's the position. That's the guy. Quinn Miners is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the best offensive lineman that we have. He is somebody that's going to set to get paid a lot of money next season. He's just as solid as it gets. He's durable. He's great in the pass game. He's great in the run game. An absolute beast. He really handles some of the most elite interior pass rushers and defensive linemen in check every time they play him. And he's still got room to grow. This is a guy that, played at a smaller college, didn't always have that much experience coming into the league. And I think he's gonna take a huge leap. He's gonna continue to get better. And somebody that absolutely can be elite in the next couple of years for sure. So I love that. And then on the left guard, Ben Powers, a guy that was signed last offseason, along with Mike McGlinchey, as we tried to revamp this entire offensive line. And Ben Powers was a little bit underwhelming last year, I felt like, because similar to Mike McGlinchey, there was a lot of plays that were really, really good that kind of just got skipped over. But when he had bad plays, they were really, really bad, and that was kind of what was glaring for him. But if you watch him towards like closer to the end of the season, he really, really started getting into his own zone. He really looked like the player he was previously when he was with Baltimore. Um, and another example of a player that I think is going to be able to take another leap forward, and in year 2, playing with the same unit can be huge. So now we get to the center position, right? And a couple days ago in Sean Payton's press conference, he had talked. He was asked a lot about the centers, right? He was asked a lot about some of the guys there. Who's going to be. It wasn't really flat out asked who was going to be the starter, but he had uh, we had discussed a couple of different players, and obviously the main person they talked about is Alex Forsyth. Alex Forsyth, who was drafted last year from Oregon. He was Bo Nix's teammate a couple years back. They were really high on him when they drafted him, and then they were really high on him really throughout the year last year. I think that they liked a lot a lot of the things that they had seen. He was on the practice squad, but he played a really vital role for this team. And so I think that they're really excited, and I think without a doubt he is the favorite to be the starter. I think he's going to be the guy that gets the first opportunity. But Sean Payton, interestingly enough, he went out of his way to mention Luke Wattenberg. They asked him about the center position specifically, and Alex Forsyth, and he went out of his way to talk about him and Luke have been doing a really great job competing. Luke was somebody that was drafted the year prior to Alex Forsyth out of Washington. And his first year, he did get some some playtime action, and he was awful. He looked like he just did not belong. He was always on his butt. He was always getting beat. He absolutely needed to put some weight on. Um, but going from year 1 to year 2, he made a massive leap. It still wasn't all that great at times, but he definitely improved significantly as he did his rookie year. So that trajectory is there. I think that he's somebody that's intriguing. He's a little bit more of that athletic type of center. A little bit lighter, but he's a little bit taller. So he kind of seems to fit a little bit more in a zone blocking scheme, which when he was initially drafted is the kind of offensive line scheme that we were running. So that's a really big, um, factor to it as well, is that he wasn't drafted by this coaching staff, but not just that, he was drafted to ultimately be in a different type of a scheme. So I think it really puts him behind the A ball. And then obviously we can't forget that we signed Sam Mustipher. Sam Mustipher is not somebody that is this elite center or unbelievable, but he is a veteran. He's been in the league for 5 years. He played in Baltimore and played. He's played with some good. He's got some decent play time, and so by doing that, by having him, by having a veteran like that, it's always going to be nice to. He can just be a plug and play player, whether there's an injury or whether one of these young guys kind of fall flat on their face and just really don't make the leap that anybody's expecting. He's somebody that can come in and play, and you feel confident about it. And it's always a good thing. It's always a good thing, especially for a rookie quarterback, to have a guy like Sam Mustipher that's a veteran that can come in and play. So I really think that the starting five of this unit is going to be pretty straightforward. It would be very shocked if it wasn't Bowles, Powers, Forsyth, Quinn Miners, and Mike McGlinchey. But when you start to look at the guys behind them, because typically teams, what they do is they'll keep about 8 guys. They'll have a swing tackle, they'll have the starting five, they'll have a swing tackle, they'll have a guy that can play both guard positions, and typically a backup center that can also play both guard positions as well. Or a guy that can play a guard and tackle positions if needed, and then one guy that can play. So really, it's all about the versatility. And when you start to look at the rest of this roster, we've got a lot of interesting guys that are young. Somebody that I've talked about a lot on this channel is Alex Polcheski. He's somebody that I was actually really high on. We got him undrafted last year, um, and he was there was a lot of rave that you heard a lot of those positive things about him in camp, and sometimes those things don't really mean much. But, he ultimately made it on the practice squad, but this was a guy that at Illinois had, like, an unbelievable amount of starts. He was extremely experienced, super smart, just kinda needed that redshirt year to be able to, um, develop and grow, but there was a lot of buzz about him, and I really think Sean Payton and the team, really liked him, and he was actually one of the reasons why I felt like the Broncos potentially could have moved on from Garrett Bowles after this offseason, because they could have felt confident enough in really wanting to embrace the youth movement and develop their guys. But I think that they made the right move by getting a borderline Pro Bowl level tackle, keeping him there for this young quarterback, while the other guys continue to develop. We also signed Matt Pert in free agency. Made a whole video about it. Um, he's kind of like that swing tackle that you always need on a team, right? A veteran guy who can play right tackle, he can play left tackle. He's not really necessarily good enough or consistent enough to be a full time starter, but he's somebody that you just like the fact that he's kind of like Cam Fleming was the last few years. He's got the versatility. He can come in. You know what to expect. And so I think he's going to be one of the favorites to make the team. And he's probably the favorite to be the swing tackle. But I think Alex Polcheski's going to have a legitimate opportunity to be able to take uh, that role from him, potentially. Quinn Bailey, man, Quinn Bailey is somebody. God, it seems like he's been on the Broncos for like 50 years, and he hasn't. But he's just always that guy that never really plays, is rarely even on the active roster, but he's always on the practice squad, and always seems to carve out a role and find a niche somewhere. And it's kudos to him, man. And I think a lot of it is because he's got legitimate five positional value type of a versatility. He can play center, he can play guard, he can play tackle. I think that they've moved him into focusing more on the tackle role. But I do think this is the last year for Quinn Bailey. I don't think he's going to be able to make the team, just because we are getting a little bit deep, and I think that we really have some interesting young guys with Alec Pocheski and the next guy that we're bringing up, and that's Frank Crump, somebody that I was elated about that we ended up getting as a undrafted free agent. I did want us to draft him because obviously you never know if you're going to be able to get him, but we did. I think that without a doubt, this is a year that Frank Crum is going to need a redshirt year. He's gonna be a practice squad guy that's gonna stuff him there, similar to Alex Polcheski last year. Really, just using it to focus on gaining strength, working on his technique, and just improving and getting better overall. But he has, of all the guys that are not the starters, he's probably got the most upside and potential to be not just a starting left tackle for the team in the future, but a very, very good one, in my opinion. Um, and so I think that I'm excited to see how he plays in the preseason. I'm excited to see how he ends up developing and what ultimately ends up happening. But I think that with the addition of Matt Pert in free agency and in another year under the belt of Alec Pochevsky, I think that those are the two guys that are going to be battling it out there for that swing tackle position. And Demontre Jacobs is another guy that we didn't really mention. Don't really know too much about him, but Demontre Jacobs, Frank Crump, Quinn Bailey will really be battling it out for some practice squad positions, in case it's ever needed. In the guard on the guard side, who's somebody that can be the backup in the guard. I mean, obviously we drafted Nick Gargulo. I hope I say that right, or Gargiulo, I think is how you actually pronounce it. Um, don't know too much about the guy. All I know is that from all accounts, he seems to be very stout and extremely smart. He did go to Yale. And he was a seventh round draft pick. So he's somebody that's going to come in there and compete to be, one of the backup guards. We did sign Calvin Throckmorton. Calvin Throckmorton, one of those guys similar to Matt Pert, very experienced. He's played guard, he's played center. He has some ties with Sean Payton. By no means has he ever been elite. He's had some pretty bad tape, but he's been, fine in other situations. And again, he's most likely going to be one of those guys that is the favorite to be the backup swing guard or the backup guard slash center. As that stands out. And then for center, we kind of talked a lot about those guys. I think if whoever ends up starting, if it's Alex Forsythe that I think is going to be starting, I think Mustafa or Luke Wattenberg are going to back up are going to battle it out for that backup position. So if I had to take a guess and I had to say who is the eight guys that are going to end up ultimately filling up the offensive line position, I think it's going to be the starting five that we had mentioned. I think it's going to be Sam Mustafa as the additional backup center. I think it's going to be Calvin Throckmorton as the backup guard, and then as a swing tackle, I think it's going to be. I personally believe it's. Oh, it's good. That's tough for me, man. I think it's going to be Alec Polchevsky because I really want for it to be. And I want to trust my eyes and trust in reading the tea leaves that they like him. They're going to give him a legitimate opportunity, and I think that they really know that if they don't allow for him to be able to step in a role when need to kind of get thrown into the fire, should he need the opportunity to, he's his development is just gonna get a little bit hampered, and I think Matt Pert will ultimately not make the team. Um, so we'll end up seeing. There's so many things that can change, but overall, I think that the offensive line group is one of the stronger position groups overall for this Broncos team, which is a very, very good news for not just Bronco fans and for this offense, but specifically for Bo Nix. I think it's going to be huge for him to be able to have a solid starting five in front of him every single week, not only just from a protection standpoint, but being able to assure that he's got a really solid run game to open things up for him. And something to keep an eye out that's going to be fascinating and extremely important to track and continue to look at in training camp is who's the starting center with Bo Nix and how are their communication, right? Because one thing that I'm intrigued by is like if we end up having Alex Forsythe and Bo Nix, both of these guys, if they're the starters week one, they'll both be starting their first NFL game ever together. And that's always a little bit worrisome because you typically like to put a rookie quarterback with a veteran center, somebody that's really smart, experienced, understands protections, and can kind of help with that transition. I think Bo Nix, his one of his strong suits, like we've always talked about, is that he is very smart. He is very um, experienced. The fact that he's played with Alex Forsythe, I think, is a huge bonus. And I think that this could actually be a much smoother transition, but it's going to be really fascinating to watch those two guys grow together and become better. Um, but yeah, without a doubt, I think this is one of the best groups for the team. I'm super excited to see how it plays out. Would love to know, what do you guys think? Who do you think? Are there any dark horses in this group? Are there anybody that you feel like maybe the Broncos can end up acquiring via trade or potentially, being cut during training camp or afterwards after the preseason? But let me know what y'all think down below. I'm super pumped up about not just the season, obviously for a lot of different reasons, but for this team. I do genuinely believe that we're going to surprise some people this year. I think we're going to be a lot more competitive and a lot more fun to watch than we have the last few seasons. Not necessarily saying much, but hey, man, we'll take it. So, anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Mile high salute to each and every one of y'all. Enjoy the day. Spend time with your families, man. And until next time, peace out.